Welcome. Welcome to Yoga Break. If you haven't already, go ahead and find a chair. And you might find something with a harder bottom. But if what you have is softer, that's okay too. So you can start by lengthening your spine towards the sky. So you might be lifting your spine to the sky, maybe noticing your breath. And one way to notice your breath might be to notice the pacing of it. Like, are your inhales and exhales similar in length? Or are they different? And maybe turning your head to one side. So you might be turning your head to one side, maybe turning it part of the way, or you could turn it as far as you can. You have a choice. Maybe noticing your breath. If your head is turned to the side, you might bring it back to center and maybe switching sides. So you could turn your head the other way. So you might be turning your head to one side, maybe turning it part of the way, or perhaps turning it as far as it goes. You're in charge of how far to turn your head. Maybe noticing your breath. If your head is turned to the side, you might bring it back to center and perhaps tilting your head to one side. So you might be tilting your head to one side, maybe so your ear is moving in the direction of your shoulder. And if you're tilting your head to one side, you might notice some sensation in the side of your neck or maybe the back of your neck. You might notice it somewhere else, or you may not notice any sensation at all. And if your head is tilted to the side, you might bring it back to center and maybe tilting your head the other way. So you might be tilting your head to one side. So maybe your ear is moving in the direction of your shoulder. Maybe noticing your breath. You might notice movement in your belly or chest as you breathe. You might notice it somewhere else. Or maybe not at all. And if your head is tilted to the side, you might bring it back to center and perhaps moving your shoulders. So one way to move your shoulders might be to roll them back, or you could roll them forward. So you might be rolling your shoulders in some way, and you could roll your shoulders with your arms down, or you could lift your elbows, maybe getting your elbows involved in moving your shoulders, or maybe extending your arms. So maybe you're making arm circles. You have a choice. And perhaps bringing your shoulders back to center. If you'd like, you might lift one arm up to the sky. So you might lift one arm up to the sky and maybe staying here. Another option is to lean to the other side. So you might place your bottom hand on your chair or leg and maybe leaning to the other side. And if you're leaning to one side, you might notice some sensation in your side of your neck or the side of your body, maybe in your shoulder of your lifted arm, or maybe somewhere else. And if you're leaning to the side, you're welcome to lift back up to center and perhaps lowering your arm if it's lifted. And maybe switching sides. So you're welcome to lift your other arm up. So you might lift one arm towards the sky, maybe staying here. Another option might be to lean to the side. So you might be leaning to one side, Maybe noticing your breath. And if you're leaning to the side, you might lift back up to center. And if your arm is lifted, you could lower it. And perhaps twisting towards your right. So you might be twisting towards your right, maybe turning your body towards the right, perhaps placing your left hand on the outer edge of your right leg. And if you're turning your body to the right, you might notice some sensation across your back or your abdominal area. You may notice it somewhere else, or maybe not at all. And if you're turning to one side, you might make your way back to center and perhaps switching sides. So you might turn the other way, maybe turning to the left. So you might be turning to the left, perhaps noticing your breath. And if you're turning to one side, you might make your way back to center. So you might be facing center, and one option might be to extend one leg out in front of you, perhaps lifting your foot up off the ground. And you could lift your foot like an inch or two off the ground, or you could lift it like a foot or more off the ground. You have a choice. Maybe noticing some sensation in the top of your lifted leg. You might notice it somewhere else. You may not notice any sensation at all. And if your leg is lifted, you might lower your lifted leg, perhaps bringing it back in and maybe extending your other leg out in front of you. You might lift your leg up. So you might lift your heel off the floor, perhaps lifting your heel an inch or two, or maybe a foot or more. You have a choice. And you're welcome to notice your breath. Maybe noticing the pacing of it, like are your inhales and exhales similar in length or are they different? And if your leg is lifted, you might release it. And perhaps placing both feet on the floor. So you might place your feet on the floor, perhaps leaning back slightly. So you might lean back, perhaps keeping a neutral spine. So your back might be relatively flat, maybe with a curve in your lower back, a slight curve. And perhaps noticing sensation in your abdominals. So you might notice some feeling or sensation in your navel area. You might notice it somewhere else, or maybe not at all. And if you're leaning back, you might lift back up to center. And perhaps reaching your arms by your sides, you might lengthen your spine to the sky, perhaps bending your knees. You're welcome to plant both feet on the floor. Maybe noticing your breath. Maybe noticing movement in your belly or chest as you breathe. Maybe in your throat or nostrils. If you'd like, you're welcome to cross one leg over the other. So you might cross your ankle over your opposite thigh, maybe opening your knee to the side. So you might have one leg cross over the other, perhaps lengthening your spine to the sky. Maybe noticing some sensation in the outer hip of your top leg. You might notice it somewhere else. or maybe not at all. And if your leg is crossed over, you're welcome to release it and maybe switching sides. So you might cross your other ankle over your thigh, maybe opening your knee to the side. So maybe having one leg crossed over the other, and perhaps noticing your breath. Maybe noticing the pacing of your breath. And if your leg is crossed over, you might release it. You're welcome to extend one leg out in front of you, maybe placing your heel on the floor. So you might extend one leg out in front of you, perhaps placing your heel on the floor, and your leg could be more straight or it could have a bend in it. You have a choice. And one option might be to keep your spine lifted. Another option might be to fold part of the way forward, perhaps placing your arms on your legs. Another option could be to fold forward so that maybe your hands come to the floor. You have a choice. Maybe noticing sensation in the back of your extended leg. You might notice it somewhere else, or maybe not at all. If your leg is extended, you're welcome to bring it back in and perhaps switching sides. So maybe extending your other leg out in front of you. You may have more of a straight leg, or you could have more of a bend in your knee. Perhaps lengthening your spine to the sky. And one option might be to keep your spine lifted, or you could fold forward, maybe placing your forearms or your hands on your legs, or perhaps moving your hands to the floor. You have a choice. You're welcome to notice your breath. And perhaps releasing. If you're folded forward, you might lift back up to center. And maybe as you inhale, you might reach both arms up overhead. And perhaps as you exhale, you might fold forward, maybe placing your forearms on your legs or maybe your hands on the floor. You have a choice. And you're welcome to notice your breath. And if you're folded forward, you might lift up to seated. So you might be lifting to seated and maybe placing your hands on your legs. As you inhale, you might move your belly and chest forward, maybe lifting your chest up to the sky, perhaps lifting your chin. And as you exhale, you might round your spine, perhaps lowering your chin to your chest. Maybe inhaling, you might move your belly and chest forward, maybe moving your shoulders back, perhaps lifting your chin and your chest. Perhaps as you exhale, you might round your spine, maybe lowering your chin to your chest. And you're welcome to do that again. Maybe inhaling, you might move forward, lifting up. And as you exhale, you might round your spine. And perhaps making your way back to center. You're welcome to stay here or maybe leaning back in your chair to rest. And I'll quiet my voice for about 15 seconds as we rest. And if you'd like, you're welcome to stay resting where you are longer. Another option might be to make your way back to seated. It's been my pleasure to guide your practice today. Peace. Thank you so much for practicing with me. And I just want to let you know that we have next week with Yoga Break, and then we're going to take a little break from Yoga Break for June 29th through July. I'll be moving to a new house. Going heading out to Colorado to get my stuff first, so I need a little bit of time. And we'll either resume in August or September, so stay tuned to my Facebook page. You can also look at Veterans Network on Clubhouse or me on Clubhouse to see what's scheduled coming up. But hopefully I'll see you again soon, and take care. Thanks.